Welcome to Creative Thaumaturgy, an alternative RPG podcast, delving into the darker, more mystical RPGs out there.
Urban fantasy,
dark fantasy,
urban horror.
Urban horror. It's been like 3 years since we did anything and talked about stuff on the internet. COVID happened, we've been apart for a while, but we're back. And we're back because something happened. Actually, two things happened. As we're recording this, I think the most Mage the Awakening movie had just come out. Yes. We just saw it last week. And yesterday, as if White Wolf has finally come out of torpor after 7 years, they released a game that's actually like worthwhile and not just like a text-based adventure. We'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Mage Supremacy.
Or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Midwits.
I don't want to be too mean about people who don't like the movie, but if they don't, it's because
they just don't understand.
They just don't get it.
They're sleepers. It's okay.
They're sleepers.
We won't hold it against you. You're not awakened to supernal symbolism, so it's fine.
I think the movie was brilliant. Before we get into Doctor Strange, let me just get this out of the way, right? Why is it Epic Game Store exclusive?
I don't know.
If you wanna restart your brand and reach the most amount of people, don't take the Tim Sweeney paycheck. Because I talked to my friend about it, and he's like, "Oh, I was gonna wait until it was on Steam." Like, by that point, you've like lost the hype behind it. You've lost the mind space. You've lost
the steam,
the opportunity to promote your brand to everybody by making it Epic Games exclusive. But we'll talk about Swan Song once we've actually finished it. We're going to talk about Doctor Strange for this episode, which is a movie that I was expecting bad things based off of what I heard about it, and then I went into it with my third eye open, and I ended up loving it because it's such a Sam Raimi movie.
In a good way.
And it has all these themes that I love about it that connect to at least my favorite tabletop RPG, Mage the Awakening.
We are avid fans of Onyx Path games. I mean, some of you may have heard of Vampire the Masquerade. We are more fans of the Chronicles of Darkness series. Maybe you guys have heard of Vampire the Requiem.
No, they haven't.
Is that reaching too far?
That's reaching.
All right.
That's reaching.
We are particularly here fans of Mage the Awakening. It's an urban fantasy game all about mysteries, mysticism, and magic.
Yes. And that's what I loved about Doctor Strange, is that level of mysticism to it, the symbolism, the themes of hubris, which are so strong throughout the whole movie.
Obsession.
All things that tie into that RPG. And like, I was like, oh yeah, I see that. I get that. When we were watching the movie, I turned to you at least 3 times and I said, Mage Supremacy.
I have to admit, in the first act of the movie, I was a little worried because you kind of got that, I don't know, quippy humor that Marvel was known for. And I was really dreading, like, oh no, they're just going to go all the way on this. Because you heard there's reshoots.
It's possibly... I mean, it's Mage Kino, and
yes.
it is so Mage the Awakening, more so than the first one. And the first one was, I think Dave B. described it as like the quintessential adamantine arrow origin story.
It really is, yeah.
And then this is even more Mage than that. I mean, I loved it. I looked at you during the movie on at least 3 separate occasions, and I said, Mage Supremacy.
Yeah.
Mage Supremacy. And it's just wonderful. It's a good movie on its own. It's a Sam Raimi movie through and through.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's so many parts of it I loved, and there's like little nods to like Evil Dead in there that kind of appear. You get the Deadite tracking shot. It was great.
Mm-hmm. The liquid mirrors.
The liquid mirrors,
mirrors. Bruce Campbell, of course. I just wish he cut his hand off at the end to stop himself from punching himself.
That would have been perfect.
He just takes a cleaver, and you know what? It would be extremely cheesy and, dare I say, Reddit, But he should have said groovy.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird because I went in with low expectations because I heard some like bad things about the movie. I heard some. I mean, nobody likes America Chavez. If you know who she is from the comics, nobody buys her books. Everyone hates her. And then I know that she's in this movie. I'm like, this is gonna be bad. And then I watch it.
If you're one of those people who says she's great, count how many comics you have of her on your bookshelf.
Well, I mean, in the movie, she doesn't really do any of the things that people hate her for.
Yeah.
I mean, she just is not the character that she is in the comics. I mean, it's her name.
I haven't read any of her comics. To be fair.
She's got like walls of text about how wonderful lesbianism is. I mean, and then that didn't happen in the movie. I heard that Wanda would have taken the lead role from Doctor Strange in his own movie, and then that didn't happen. I think people are primed to dislike some of the creative decisions based off of previous experiences with Disney and Marvel and Admiral Holdo. That kind of like, it's going to be another movie where the woman's going to belittle the man all day long. And then that's not what happens in the movie. And I think it's so Mage the Awakening because it deals with the central theme of hubris.
Yes, and how far are you willing to go?
And how mages don't give a fuck.
Well, yeah. How far are you willing to go to achieve the enlightenment you're searching for? How far are you willing to go to fulfill your obsessions? Mm-hmm. Right?
In the intro, called it the Multiverse of Midwits.
Yes, or the Midwits of...
Midwits of Madness is better. Because that's how I feel, like, looking at the discourse about this movie. I'm just like, what? That's not what happened. That didn't happen. This happened.
Yeah, let's actually define what we mean by midwits. Like, it's not just us saying, those guys have a room temperature IQ.
Yeah, it's not that.
And midwit, the term, right, it originally describes a kind of person who is smart, who is intelligent, but doesn't really have the drive to understand things in their depth, right? It's someone who can look at something on a surface level and can be clever enough to grasp it and understand it, but doesn't kind of like explore it deeper or understand it deeper because they're just kind of like skimming the surface level.
I mean, everyone knows there's a problem with the agenda or whatever, right? You go, look, I hate America Chavez. I hate this character. And then she's in the movie. But you gotta remove your hatred for that character and then like see her as what she is in the movie because they're not the same person.
No. And there's different things that are being portrayed in these movies, different stories, right?
And I feel because we play Mage, we've read a lot of the Mage stuff. A lot of these themes seem to be pretty obvious to us. My friends who are in my Mage campaign watched it, and they think it the same thing. They recognize these themes. And then you go online, and a lot of the discourse, nobody talks about the theme of hubris at all.
No. What they discuss like, is,
Cinema Sins level nitpicking.
Yes. It's kind of like, this character is...
Why didn't she free Wong before she destroyed the book? I don't know. Maybe there's a ward. I don't know. Anyway, that's what we mean by midwit. I don't want to be too mean. If you didn't like the movie, that's your opinion. But we're going to talk about why it's good and how it relates to Mage specifically. These themes that are so obvious to us because we play Mage, I think that's why I really latched onto the movie as being something better than your typical Marvel cape. Can I say the word?
Let's just say it. Cape shit. Yeah, cape shit.
But Shang-Chi didn't wear a cape. It was just shit, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in Mage, right, the characters are, they're addicts, right? They're addicted to mysteries. They have obsessions that they push as far as they can, and God help the cosmos, they have the ability to do it because they can manipulate arcana and supernal symbols. They have the power to follow their obsessions to its end.
What are they saying? Doctor Strange 1, they pull energy from higher dimensions.
Yes.
The supernal realms.
Yes. Or the abyss if you're the ancient one.
I mean, that's such a great like theme that's carried on in Multiverse of Madness. Is Strange defends the Ancient One in the first movie, saying it. Like she does what she has to do to protect the Earth, right? Maybe she has to dabble in the forbidden arts a little bit, but she's a complicated woman. And then in Multiverse, I think the part that you turned to me after the movie, you said that was a key moment in the movie was when he says, "Christine, you're right about me."
Yes. One of the key points of this movie, again, with Doctor Strange himself, is that he sees different versions of himself, right? You see a version of him in the beginning of the movie who goes a step too far. You find a version of him from a different universe.
Commits an act of hubris, tries to kill a little girl because he thinks he's better. Yes.
Well, he thinks to himself, it's the only way. I have the power to do it so that her power can't fall to whatever this creature is.
I have the power, thus I have the right.
Exactly. I'm the wise one, so I can make this decision. But he dies in that universe. And then in another universe, you find a version of him who dabbles in this dark form of magic, this inherently chaotic form of magic that causes entire universes to be destroyed, all to fulfill some goal. And you find different versions of his love interest, Christine, his touchstone, not that mages have touchstones, but his touchstone, Christine. And they've interacted with these different versions of Stephen in these different universes. And one of the lines she says to him is, "You strangers are just all the same." And you kind of get the sense that he's trying to prove himself. He's trying to redeem himself and say, "No, I'm not. No, I will be better where all these other versions of me have gone too far. I will be the one who is the hero and doesn't dirty myself."
Watch me dump my experience in Wisdom 10.
But then there's that one line from the movie where he says to her, "You're right. We are all the same.
We are dangerous. We are going to reach beyond our grasp, but there's a greater good for it. There's a reason we're doing this. And it's worth taking the risk," which is what you do when you cast any spell with Paradox. You take the risk. You roll the die. And maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not.
And remember, risking hubris is enlightening.
It is enlightening, and that's why he wins in a way, right? Because you notice that he's running away from Wanda the whole movie, right? He's powerful, but he doesn't have the Darkhold. He doesn't use the Forbidden Arts. He doesn't have a Time Stone anymore. He hasn't made a deal with Dormammu. So he's powerful, but he's not as powerful as he could be.
Yes,
until the end of the movie where he reaches beyond his grasp.
Yes, he does delve into this forbidden art, this left-handed magic.
And then he gets a paradox condition and summons some ghosts, and then he remembers, oh wait,
I have death too.
I mean, that's so Mage of the Awakening, because that was like Christine talking as the storyteller. I'm like, you have death too, right?
It's like, oh, that's right. Okay, I'm just gonna cast a ruling spell and dominate the ghosts.
Use them. They're ghosts. Use them.
Well, let's talk about Wanda, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is, and going into the movies, I really hate when trailers spoil the plot of a movie. You know, you hate it too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I did not see the plot of this movie in the trailers, and I am thankful for that, right? At no point in time when you're watching the trailers do you realize that Wanda ends up being the main antagonist.
I think that's why people also got upset, because
I like that. I actually like that.
I loved it because it's magic is corrupting. She's Scarlet Witch. She's not a hero in the comics.
No, well, she's an anti-hero, but she's also villainous.
I don't know if anti-hero is the word that you want to use. She's part of the X-Men, kind of.
I don't see a problem with that, because it worked perfectly. And her character, Oh, her character was great for the themes, right? She plays a perfect like dark mirror to Doctor Strange.
Yeah, she's a great foil to Doctor Strange, and that's like one of the things that I find like insane, that drives me to madness. And people say that the movie's about Wanda and not about Doctor Strange. I'm like, no, just because the villain has some humanizing scenes so that you understand what's wrong with her. I mean, Sam Raimi does this all the time in Spider-Man movies, right? There's so much screen time dedicated to Sandman in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Right?
And he's a sympathetic villain.
Is the movie about Sandman? No. It's about Peter Parker and how he turns evil and says shalom when he answers the phone.
Gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Right, Sam Raimi does this a lot in his superhero movies, where he spends a lot of time humanizing both sides, even if one side is wrong. Like, Wanda is totally a bad person, and Strange says that multiple times.
Yes.
Wong says, "You're insane. You're not a good person." And I guess Strange gaslights her into suicide at the end because she realizes, yeah, she's not a good person.
Well, I think from a Mage perspective, like, her character is the perfect representation of a marauder, right?
Actually, let's talk about a scene from the beginning of the movie where things take a turn. Is basically, up to this point, Doctor Strange is trying to figure out why these monsters are chasing after this young girl. He goes to Wanda, tries to recruit her for a mission to redeem herself because she did something bad in WandaVision, and he's like, okay, this is your chance to do some good so that you can be put on children's lunch boxes again. And there's like this line, which is kind of like this mic drop, Yas Queen Slay line. I saw tweets about people saying like, oh, this line, it's like every scriptwriter's dream, and it's when Strange says, your kids aren't real, you created them with magic. And she says, that's what every mother does, or something like that. And that's such a great line because it just shows how depraved she is and how she equates completely unnatural acts of magic with the most natural, beautiful act of giving birth. And that line, that distinction between the two is completely gone in her brain.
Yes.
And like, if you're not thinking about that, because I went on the discourse in the internet after watching the movie, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this is just like a dumb Yas Queen line." Like, no, it's such a brilliant line that completely explains Wanda's like thought process.
It shows how far she's gone.
Yeah,
and just
she's
how
completely overcome by hubris at this point.
Yeah. To her, she doesn't see anything wrong with stealing her children from another her. She doesn't see anything wrong with performing unnatural acts to create this natural bond. Like, to her, it's like, oh no, it's just a shortcut. Her whole goal is to find her kids. Not sure if you watched WandaVision.
I was going to watch WandaVision, and then I heard that they cut Doctor Strange out of it because he was supposed to show up at the end. And I was like, nah.
They did cut him out of it, but this story is a direct continuation of it, because in that one, she has this family, but then she finds out her family was all illusory, except they're not.
Out.
Except they're not. She could hear them. They existed, and you find out that they do exist, just in other worlds. The family that she never had, and the family that she feels she deserves, to the point that she starts researching this dark magic that allows her to touch on other worlds and to find different versions of herself. And yeah, I suppose she could have gone to one where she died and her kids were left motherless. But you know what? She
doesn't want those kids. She wants the kids that are like the ones that she dreamed of, which is not ones that are orphans or traumatized or whatever.
Ones who love her because she's their mother. And she does find another version of her, right? And it's this very interesting parallel where she has one spell where she can possess her counterpart in this universe, and she just uses herself like this tool to be discarded. Like, this isn't just a mage using a sleeper as a patsy or something. She's abusing herself. But what's so interesting is that because it's not her, she doesn't care. she's the only thing that matters to her, and her kids belong to her, not to this her, right? And there is this interesting parallel where she's willing to go this far to fulfill her specific obsession, right? And again, it's not like she takes the center stage of the story. This is a dark reflection of Doctor Strange. There, like you said, there's some subplots there. There is a subplot of what if he could have been with the woman he loves, with Christine.
Those small things about Strange's character that people kind of gloss over because it's not the central plot about him, which is the ones of, like at the beginning of the movie, right? He meets that doctor who he used to work with, and it's like, was there any other way? And he's like, no, I had to do what I had to do. And then he's lying to everybody around him, lying about his happiness, lying about Evil Strange, who they should have had with no mustache or beard. He should have just been clean shaven. Evil Strange. He says, like, you're a master of the mystic arts, you know everything, you have all this power, but you're not happy, are you? And Strange is this person who has magic and he can do everything, but he's not happy. And he's lying to himself, and he's lying to other people, and he goes through this journey, not necessarily about Christine, because it's not really about Christine in the end. I mean, he asked her to go with her, but it's kind of a joke. He doesn't actually take her with her. Yeah.
But it is kind of this continuation, really, of his character from the first Doctor Strange, right? It's a continuation of the story arc, but it's kind of inverted, where he's trying to deny himself all these things, right? He's trying to present himself as though, yes, he was the one who made a decision that caused tons of people to temporarily die and have their lives forever out of sync by 5 years, right? He's the one who chose to master his wizard powers instead of ending up with Christine. He's the one who has decided that he's going to focus on the greater calculus of the cosmos rather than the whims of any one person. And so where the first one is trying to reactualize the self, this one is denying the self, right? But he has to struggle with it through this. How does he deny himself? How does he deny all these other selves that he encounters, right? And in the end, he comes to this conclusion that he really can't, right? He confronts these different versions of himself who have fallen to obsession, to hubris, to dark magics and other things. And in the end, he kind of realizes that these are all him, right? They're different hymns, but they all have the same capabilities, not just his powers, but his capability to go too far, to maybe cross that line he shouldn't. And in the end, he decides, well, you know what? That is me. I can't deny that, so I just have to accept that and integrate that. So it's kind of strange. It's very interesting that you see this inversion of his character arc, where he goes from trying to become more than what he was to accepting his dark side and integrating it into himself, or at least trying to channel it in a positive way.
But, I saw people complaining, like, well, he doesn't shoot enough of a big beam. He couldn't just, uses his mind. He outsmarts the villain. He implants the idea in America on how to beat her by using his brain instead of using a big beam, like in that movie with Nick Cage, Sorcerer's Apprentice, where it ends in a Kamehameha battle. I think another interesting thing about hubris is the Illuminati, actually, which I really liked the Illuminati part, because they're projecting onto our Doctor Strange what they are guilty of, which is hubris, which is, we're better than everyone else. We killed our Doctor Strange. Wanda has nothing on us. We're gonna stop her. We don't need you. I mean, it's just a colossal act of hubris from them. And then they accuse Strange of it, even though he's not yet guilty of it. And mage supremacy kicks in when they learn their place.
Yes, they get wrecked.
They get absolutely wrecked, which is... That's what Mage is about.
You see,
That's what Mage is about, because...
As it turns out, being awakened is better than having the telepathy merit.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than being a Nova.
It's better than being peak female physicality.
Right?
But I like how Strange kind of influenced them, because Illuminati Strange was the one who was guilty of the horrible acts of hubris where he destroyed another universe. And then he kind of passed that on to the other characters in his posse. The other Illuminati are also just as full of themselves. And what people always forget about hubris is it's a three-part thing, right? It's hubris, Ate, Nemesis.
Yes.
And that's what was so cathartic about that scene for me, was it's not just enough about thinking that you're a god. It's that Reed Richards tried to act like he was a god. And then when you act like a god, you get your divine punishment in the form of mage supremacy.
He did. He really did. He got shredded.
You get divine punishment. That's the important thing about hubris, is that it always has to follow. It's not a very good mage story if you're just rewarded for all these acts of hubris and you get nothing bad coming your way. Even Strange at the end of the movie gets a third eye. Which,
yes, a very painful third eye.
Is it even a bad thing? He seems fine with it at the end. I don't know. Third eye symbolizes enlightenment. Could symbolize a lot of things.
Although in the context of the movie, right, you do see another version of Doctor Strange who has fully given in to his obsession with getting Christine. This version,
the Mad Strange,
and he's got his third eye open.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks around. Also, a quick aside, I really, really loved that scene in particular when they go to this destroyed world that's falling apart.
Yes.
It's full of great symbolism, right?
Mm-hmm.
These kind of like ghost highways that are empty, that are kind of like almost like a pulse fading out. You see like headlights, but there's no cars there as they drive by. You get to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and everything is kind of like, there's the water levels like almost engulfing everything. Like they step on water, a couple inches of water. Water obviously symbolizes chaos and the unmaking of things, right? It's the formlessness that the firmament is made out of, right? And in Mage, what's at the edge of the beach in the World Soul?
Right. It's the Ocean of Ouroboros, which is the abyss.
Yes, it's that formlessness, and then he also has to walk up a set of stairs. He has to ascend above the formlessness to face himself. And in the background, there's kind of like this swirling maelstrom, which kind of symbolizes this is like the fulcrum point, right? It's no longer this world. It's that fulcrum point where he has to face himself and then overcome himself. In a way, he does. That is a turning point in the movie where he decides, okay, I will use this dark magic. I will use the dark home to seek out.
Sorry, you said dark home.
What is it?
It's the dark hole. Dark hole. Van Darkholme is a man.
He's an artist. I forgot.
Van Darkholme is the runs a deep dark dungeon somewhere.
Sorry. He uses the dark hold and uses the magic of dreamwalking to go back to the world and confront Wanda directly. It's that moment where he faces his darkness, defeats himself, and in this world with the swirling abyss in the background symbolizing the centrality, not of this location, but also of this moment in the movie. I thought it was really great.
But turn off your brain.
Turn off your brain?
That's just symbolism. Who cares?
It's just punching,
That's
man.
just style over substance.
Just punch, man. Just punch.
I hate that term, style over substance. It's a visual medium. Style is substance.
Yes. Or as our great Canadian thinker Marshall McLuhan once said, the media is the message. And this is a visual media, and it has a message.
Yeah. that wasn't really a review of the movie, more just an analysis of the themes that make it so strong. I mean, I loved it, but
I also loved it.
I loved it. But it's more than just liking it. You know, it's not enough to just say, "Oh, I like this thing." I think it's really good to dig into why you like it.
It's a bit like what I think it was either Socrates said: "The unexamined life isn't worth living."
That's so pretentious.
But it's true.
It's true. It's true, and I think it's satisfying to just like dig into this movie, more so than other Marvel movies, because I'm just so sick of like these garbage Marvel movies. I saw Shang-Chi and I just wanted to throw up.
They're very mass-produced. Shang-Chi's like even worse than mass-produced.
It's got nothing. Whereas this movie has all this personality, all this Sam Raimi-ism, all this symbolism, all this occultism and mysticism
and horror.
That you don't see that. It's so weird to see this in a Marvel movie. And maybe that's why it's not tracking as well, because Marvel audiences aren't used to being inundated with these layers of symbolism. But I think the more you look into the movie, the more rewarding it is. What's next, though? Because I mentioned at the beginning that we're playing Swan Song right now.
So when we are both done with that, I think we're going to have ourselves a review.
Yeah.
We'll see if we both agree on it. Right now we are.
Yeah, right now, as of playing through the first 3 character intros, like the tutorial basically, I'm loving it. I'm a little bit further than you. I just started one of the 3 branching paths, or that's where you stop. But I think clever use of mechanics, clever use of the world, extremely in-depth codex, great for newcomers into the world of darkness.
The mood feels so good too. The atmosphere. It's definitely a vampire game.
You know what I was thinking? Actually, not a vampire game. But remember in 2015 when White Wolf came back, I tweeted at them and I said, "Hey, when's the next Kindred the Embraced?" And they kind of gave me the snarky response, like, "You've got all these other things in the pipeline that we're doing. We're not going to do Kindred the Embrace. Wait for what's coming." And then 7 years pass and nothing's happened. And then
then here we are.
This feels like Kindred the Embraced. This feels like
you finally got your dream of.
I got my Kindred the Embraced sequel.
It's episode 7. Was there like only 6 episodes of Kindred?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And only the first one was good. Me and my friend Colton will do an episode on the other Super Mage the Awakening piece of media that came out since COVID started, a little bit before that, called Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. Did you know that the award-winning Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial that includes the critically acclaimed Heavensward expansion?
We are not...
It has a free trial that includes all the content up to level 60 with no restriction on playtime.
We're not sponsored by them, by the way. He
no
just
one is.
Loves the game that much.
No one is. The meme is you either quit in A Realm Reborn, which is where you are, or you live to become a walking advertisement for the game.
I believe it. And I would also like to get into a series of talking about how to set up games and how to run games. There's kind of a lack of good storyteller advice. And, I mean, we focus on themes and how to use them in your games. But how about the more practical stuff? Like how to prep things. Mm-hmm. How to set up...
how to make sure that your characters, that your players have characters that don't all hate each other before the game starts.
How to make sure that your your players don't hate each other before the game starts. No spoilers, but I've had some experience with that in the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Everyone has.
Yes.
Is it that guyism?
No, just, it's a little bit of chemistry, really.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, so I'll wait until we talk about it.
Sure. All names and identifying features will be scrubbed out, but I'll be using more generalized examples of what to do when you see an immovable object in an unstoppable force about to blow up your game table.
Well, I guess we'll see you next time. Did you know about Final Fantasy XIV?
Bye, guys!